Jesus Christ, right? Oh, somebody's calling. Oh, somebody's calling. So welcome to our webinar, Farming Meets Solar Power in Africa. Hi, I'm Makoto Tajima, Senior Research Fellow of the Institute for Sustainable Energy Policies, or ISEP in short, in Tokyo, Japan. This fifth webinar in the series. And today we have that we are connecting 3 locations today: Tokyo in Japan, Bamako in Mali, and Freiburg in Germany. This program is simultaneously broadcasted via YouTube Live. Today, fortunately, Dr. Ibrahim Togola will be co-chairing the webinar with me. So I hope we can take care of French-speaking audience better than before. So this webinar series is not just a learning platform, but it is action-oriented. That means we are aiming at seeing tangible output. First, to establish Agrivoltaic pilot project in Africa. And second, forming African Agrivoltaics Association in someday, in near future. Today's entire program runs for 60 minutes. First, we have a 20 minutes presentation from Mr. Max Trommsdorff. We hear lessons he learned about technology transfer in the arid and dry environment. And then it is followed by a 30 minutes question and answer and discussion session. In today's discussion, we want to focus on ways to reduce water consumption, appropriate crops and yield, and constraints on technology transfer to West Africa. Please write your questions in the question and answer box that you can find at the bottom of the Zoom screen. Today, you can write your question not only in English, but also in French, because we have Ibrahim Togola. So Ibrahim, can you take your French audience today? Maybe you want to summarize that what I said so far in French, Ibrahim?
Oui, bonjour. Il faut activer les sons. Oui, bonjour tout le monde. Thank you very much, Makoto. Moi, je suis Ibrahim Togola. Donc, je suis le président de Mali Folk Center. Et donc, nous sommes co-organisateurs de ces webinaires avec ISEP Japan. Et c'est vraiment un grand honneur aujourd'hui pour nous, c'est-à-dire de recevoir Max Trommsdorff, donc, qui va échanger avec nous aujourd'hui. C'est dans le cadre de notre série webinaire internationale sur l'agrovoltaïque en Afrique. Donc ici, nous allons beaucoup parler, c'est-à-dire de ce qui est le transfert des technologies donc, et les enseignements tirés au Japon et en Allemagne, surtout sur les zones climatiques, les zones arides. Donc, comme vous savez, l'Afrique est très riche en ressources solaires, en ressources d'énergie renouvelable, mais toutefois, la population africaine souffre énormément, c'est-à-dire de faible accès, c'est-à-dire aux services énergétiques. L'énergie en tant que telle, comme on le sait tous, est juste un outil. C'est un outil indispensable pour toute activité de développement économique, social, culturel, et aussi, surtout, pour vraiment la résilience, c'est-à-dire des communautés, c'est-à-dire face aux différents aléas climatiques. Notre vulnérabilité africaine est due en partie à notre pauvreté énergétique. Et donc, nous pensons que les énergies renouvelables nous donnent une très belle opportunité pour pouvoir combler notre état, comme ça a été le cas avec, c'est-à-dire les téléphones cellulaires, qui ont aussi toutes les communautés africaines devaient attendre les lignes téléphoniques pour atteindre leur village. Beaucoup n'allaient pas être en mesure de satisfaire cette demande. Mais aujourd'hui, comme vous le savez, il y a beaucoup de villages africains, ils ont bénéficié des mêmes technologies, des mêmes conforts, c'est-à-dire l'usage des réseaux sociaux et tout ça avec les téléphones mobiles. Et je pense que profondément que les énergies renouvelables, c'est la même chose. Que ce soit au Japon, en Allemagne, c'est-à-dire en Europe, en Amérique, nous pouvons avoir la même technologie que pour nos villages les plus reculés, c'est-à-dire sur le continent africain. Et dans ça, il fait que la grande partie de nos communautés vivent de l'agriculture, donc l'agrivoltaïque, qui combine l'usage du solaire avec, c'est-à-dire non seulement pour la production énergétique, mais aussi pour la satisfaction des besoins agricoles, est vraiment la bienvenue. Donc, et là, on n'a pas besoin de réinventer la roue. Et nous sommes très heureux d'avoir nos partenaires ici au Japon et aussi nos partenaires en Allemagne pour nous partager leur expérience et ce qu'ils sont en train de faire pour pouvoir vraiment tirer le maximum de profit et appliquer ça dans nos contextes et dans nos réalités. Voilà, donc je vous remercie et tous les participants en attendant les questions-réponses. Merci bien. Okay, so I think I give the floor back to Max, and so he can take us around this. And I thank also our friends from ISEP and Malifortuna here who have been setting up this. Thank you. Floor is back. Jipas Makoto, your mic is on mute. We don't hear you.
Thank you for reminding me, Ibrahim. So let's move on to the presentation part. Today, we are inviting a distinguished speaker from Germany, the origin of Agrivoltaics. Mr. Max Trommsdorff currently works for Fraunhofer ISE, Institute for Solar Energy Systems in Freiburg, Germany. He has been responsible for Agrivoltaics since 2020, and now serves as head of the team Agrivoltaics in Fraunhofer ISE. He obtained a Master of Science in Economics and Politics from the University of Freiburg. And his master's thesis was, of course, on agrivoltaics. And he is going to host and chair the upcoming Agrivoltaics World Conference next month. So I strongly encourage you to attend this important event. He was also a scientific committee member of the first Agrivoltaic conference, AB2M 2020 last year. So in connection to Africa, he's now leading an Agrivoltaics demonstration project here in Mali and Gambia. So I hope he can touch upon those projects during his presentation as well. So please welcome Mr. Max Trommsdorff. Max, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, dear Makoto. Thank you very much, Ibrahim, for co-hosting this event. It's a great pleasure to be here and to talk with you on this very interesting topic. Let me share my screen. I hope you can see it now.
Yes, we can clearly see you.
Great.
The presentation.
Yep. So also, bonjour pour tout le monde de ma part. had some French at school, but it's a long time ago. So I have to reduce it to a very short content. Lessons learned from Japan and Germany. As most of you can guess, Japan and Germany are not very arid, but still there might be some conclusions and important insights that could help to also foster agrivoltaics in Africa. And that's the main reason, I think, why we are here today. My agenda is as follows: provide a short background and history and definition of agrivoltaics. Then I'll show some results from Germany and experiences from Japan. Then I would like to shed some light on potential water, energy, food nexus. And then I will present some of our running projects that we have in Africa at the moment. The background here in Germany is that we have to install a lot of capacity on photovoltaics. It's just to illustrate where we are today and where we have to be in 30 years. This means that we need 8 to 10 times the PV development that we have today. The main driver for this development could be seen in this graph, that due to price reductions, solar energy will be the main energy source in the world, at least from 2050 or 2060 on. According to most predictions, here one example from Shell, solar energy will be the most dominant energy source on this planet. That's also an example of this price reductions. And the question remains how to install and where to install all these photovoltaics. There are more opportunities where we could integrate it. Of course, there are roofs, might be also floating bodies, but one of them, what we are talking today, is agrivoltaics here in the left picture. If we look at the potential of the different areas where we could integrate photovoltaics, agricultural sector is, at least for Germany, the one with the highest potential. This is simply because land areas are just largely available. Half of the German area is agricultural area. And here we only considered crops and applications where we would expect some synergies between the PV and the agricultural layer. So what happened in the last 10 years? We saw the first systems in Italy and France. Japan was the first country then with a governmental supporting scheme. Then China, since 2015, caught up, and there we see today still largest amount of capacity in the world. France then, 2 years later, in 2017, was the country with the in Europe which was first to support agrivoltaics. So that's good. Then they might also produce some French literature for transferring this knowledge to Mali, for example. The question is, what is agrivoltaics? This is not as easy because, as we see here in the pictures, agrivoltaics can be very diverse. It could be greenhouses like here, could be on aquaculture farms, also on ground-mounted systems. Here are examples from horticulture or arable farming. So we tend to say that agrivoltaics is just as diverse as agriculture is. So that's why we might need also a more precise definition of agrivoltaics. And the Japanese term solar sharing, or the nicely shows one possible definition, that we have to share the sunlight. That's also what we tried to consider when we talk at Fraunhofer ISE between a dual land use of photosynthetic processes and photovoltaic processes. As an overview, this classification, I just want to show you briefly what it all could encompass. So in general, we divide between open and closed systems of agrivoltaics. And here we can again divide between ground-mounted interspace agrivoltaic systems in the open class and overhead PV panels, while for closed systems, we can distinguish between PV greenhouses and all the other buildings which are not transparent and accordingly would not count as agrivoltaics. There are different regimes for the PV panel, but more interesting, the typical applications. So in grassland farming, in arable farming, and in horticultural applications, the implications for the photovoltaic systems and for the agriculture layer might differ to a large extent. And this is, of course, also the case for aquaculture, but in the remainder, we will focus on this more narrow definition, excluding aquaculture. But nevertheless, it might be an interesting approach also for Africa. Shedding some light on research findings in Germany. So that's just a rough distinguish between shade tolerant and more shade loving or sun loving crops. This could also be shown here in this graph, where you see the responses from the of the crops according to the different levels of light. One short example, because this was the main and the first research plant in Germany, and the Lake of Constance, where we, on a third of a hectare, installed approximately 200 kilowatt peak, and we analyzed the crop growth of clover grass, celery, potatoes, and winter wheat in a crop rotation method. And here you see some more pictures, how we tried also to take into account the soil quality, that we don't want to compact the soil. So that's why we had these mobile streets for installation. And we also tried to avoid concrete on the fields. And we used some of these more reversible anchors to install the system. What was one very interesting result for the potato yield in the years 2017 and 2018 was that overall the potato production was well possible. We had reductions of about 18%, so maybe roughly 20% of reductions in the year 2018, which was much warmer and drier here in all Central Europe. We even observed an increase of the potato yield. And what is even more interesting, that the quality of the potatoes also changed. So what you see at the yellow, green, and blue bars is the size of the potato tubers. And fortunately, we could observe that the preferred tuber size increased much more than the other ones did. This might be by chance, but it generally shows us that there will be some change of the plant growth in partial shade conditions. And if we understand these patterns and these effects, then we could take this as an advantage in order to produce not only a sufficient quantity, but also the preferred quality of crops. One important argument is the land use efficiency, especially for densely populated countries like Germany and Japan. This is illustrated by this picture, and we used here for the calculation of this so-called land equivalent ratio real figures from the harvests in Germany, and we end up with a 86% rise of land use efficiency. That means for arid or semi-arid climate zones, we would expect to actually be twice as productive if we can combine ground-mounted PV systems and agricultural applications in the case of agrivoltaics. This is mainly because in arid and semi-arid climates, we would expect the synergies for the crops as much higher. Obviously, if you have a vast solar irradiation, as Manuel mentioned before, as far as I understood in French, then it really means that we don't have to keep so large distances between the rows, because there will still be enough sunlight for the crops. And at the same time, we might need less irrigation and even benefit because plants are less suffering by too much sun. A short glance on Japan. Different to Germany, Japan has a vast experience because there are a lot of systems already installed. This was by 2019 already almost 2,000 farms with agrivoltaic systems. Here you see the distribution all over Japan. And interesting is, of course, the question which crops dominate within agrivoltaic systems. And here we see also a very wide range. So even rice production, in the case of paddy rice, is a mentionable share, while the largest shares will be still in shade-tolerant crops. Here in the case of ginger, Japanese clayera, mushroom production, or blueberries or butterbur. Here you see also experience from Japan. What are the different shading ratios? So similar to our experiences in Germany, we see the most systems with a shade ratio between 30 and 40%. But what we also see is that there is a wide range depending on the kind of crops you grow in the system. Let's have a look at the food, energy, water nexus. Obviously, in arid climate zones, this gives a great potential. We could reduce the transevaporation. We can also improve the working conditions in the field through shading. And it could be also an effective measure against desertification. Also, water for cleaning the panels could be used twice, also for irrigation for the crops. And rainwater, in case of unstable precipitation patterns over the year, might be harvested over the panels. That's the right lower picture, and stored and used later on when there is no precipitation and water scarcity. This is what we would like to show here, a concept of how to collect rainwater over the PV panels and how to store it. We made one calculation for a case study in India, where we have very unsteady rainfalls over the year, which you see here. If we would take out part of the rainfall in the wet years between June and September and redistribute it to the drier month of the year, in the end, we can kind of come up with a much more equal distribution, which in this area would mean that agricultural activities can not only perform between June and November, but also in the rest of the year between December and May, in the dry and hot season. if you look at the precipitation patterns in East and West Africa, we also see regions with this kind of irregular distribution. Here examples for Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, and in the case of West Africa, also for Mali and Gambia, where we have even more extreme distribution. So this means that this rainwater collection and distribution for dry months might also bear a great potential for this region. So we try to show this potential also in running projects that we are having right now at Fraunhofer ISE. I mainly would focus on two projects, which is WaterMed 4.0. That's an EU-funded project with more than 15 partners. And the second one later, APV MAGA, where we focus on Mali and Gambia, together with a lot of also local partners from Western Africa. So WaterMed, as the title suggests, we focus at the efficient use and management of water resources in the Mediterranean areas. So our focus is there on Algeria. The project runs from June 2019 until May 2020. We actually hope that we can extend it because due to COVID-19, we are a bit delayed with installing the prototypes. The main goals for us, I just would like to highlight in the terms of agrivoltaics that we would like to demonstrate the possibility also there for North African countries and to reduce the irrigation needs, to show also there the potential and possibilities to include irrigation systems in the mounting structure of the agrivoltaic system. In the pilot here in Algeria, we would like to plant crops in case of potatoes and strawberries. In the system, we have a ground covered ratio of 44%, which is relatively high for German conditions, but for Algeria, we think that's a good ratio. And main idea is to collect the rainwater. Here you see all the distribution and the location. It's not far from Algiers. They're between Oran and Algiers, half the way, in Kemis Miliana. And the agricultural experiments are conducted by the University of Jalia Unamana, the research laboratory there, which are also partners in this project. So you see here this V shape where we would like to collect the rainwater. Unfortunately, due to budget limitations, we were only able to install one PV panel row. The other rows, we had to install dummies. This was just a few weeks ago, so we are happy to present these pictures here. And now coming to the project APV MAGA, where we focus on Mali and Gambia. And here also the aim is to demonstrate the feasibility of agrivoltaics, not only as in Algeria for research facilities, but here in the case of Gambia, also for real ground cases, so where we collaborate with farmers and farming communities in order to install agrivoltaic systems. The project is funded by Germany. It started last year in August and will run until summer 2023. So the location of the Malian pilot, that's already clear because this is our partner in Katibugu. They're at the university where we're gonna test potatoes and onions. The size of the system will be similar to the one in Germany I presented before, around 200 kilowatt peak. And here also we would like to integrate all the water management, lessons learned from Algeria. So we also hope to optimize the systems here. And here, of course, we have a great partner to also analyze the crop growth. The locations in Gambia are less clear, so there are 4 pilots we would like to install in Gambia. One is already pretty safe at the University of the Gambia, with a system size of approximately 60 kilowatt peak. But regarding the system design and the crops, we still are in a very early age, and we will define this in the next weeks and months together with our partners. And the other locations are still open. So the challenge here was to identify suitable locations. Together with our partners, we had a short list of 36 potential sites, and hope that soon we will have only 3 remaining sites where we can then hopefully start the more detailed plannings. So unfortunately, we were not able to visit Mali and Gambia within this project yet because of the travel restrictions. But we are very optimistic that, Emmanuel, we can hopefully soon meet in person in order to push all these activities forward. And maybe I would also like to mention that our regional responsible person at Fraunhofer ISA, that's Brendan Bingwa. So he is for sure also happy to provide more information on our African projects, because obviously we are very open and forward-looking to further cooperations. And merci pour avoir la possibilité de présenter notre projet. Et je suis convaincu que l'agrivoltaïsme représente une grande possibilité et opportunité pour l'Afrique. Merci beaucoup, and I'm looking forward to the following presentations.
Okay.
Makoto, I give back to you.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you, Max. Thank you for your excellent presentation, and you have so many mentions in the slides during your presentation. So people may need to look at them later on to digest the essence of your presentation. But it was excellent to hear many important factors and points that you raised. So I'd like to move on to next session, question and answer and discussion session. Okay, let me show. Okay.
Je veux vraiment remercier Max pour cette brillante présentation. Merci beaucoup, Max. Et je pense que un des grands défis qu'on a aujourd'hui, Max, c'est vraiment les transferts de technologies, des savoir-faire, mais surtout la formation. Et je pense que c'est une très bonne chose que vous travaillez avec des universités comme l'Institut Polytechnique au Mali et aussi l'Université Agricole au Gambie. Et je pense que le Mali Folk Center, nous, notre intérêt dans ça, pour travailler avec vous, avec l'ICEP au Japon, c'est vraiment essayer de voir cette dynamique. Bon, j'ai aussi certains de nos amis en France qui sont en ligne, et comme vous l'avez dit aussi, la France est très avancée dans l'agrivoltaïque, et donc je pense ici il y a une belle opportunité, c'est-à-dire dans le développement et la promotion de cette approche-là, surtout pour les pays du Sahel, où l'eau et les questions de développement économique en milieu rural deviennent très importantes. Merci, on va passer aux questions. Et n'hésitez pas, vous pouvez écrire vos questions en français. Et donc, pour nos amis francophones, si vous avez des questions, écrivez-les en français et on va les répondre. Merci. Mon côté, floor is yours.
Okay. So now, free discussion session. I don't see any questions from the audience yet. So maybe So today we want to discuss ways to reduce water consumption, appropriate crops and yield, and constraints on technical transfer to West Africa. But we are particularly interested in water conservation measures, type of crops and their yield, which both of which are mentioned during Max's presentation. And also, people in Mali are very much interested in simple way of building the agrivoltaic systems. So Max, some of the project I've seen during your presentation is, even for me, it's the first time. I was not aware of your project in Algeria.
Mm-hmm.
It was very interesting. So you are concentrating on rainwater harvest method, which is really, I found, which is really innovative and very appropriate to a small scale application in Africa. And you said from Algeria experience, you use the ground cover ratio 44%, which is a lot higher than ordinary shading rate you use in Germany. And did you find that shading rate is appropriate, or could be a ballpark figures that you can use, you can start from?
Yeah, that's the crucial question, Makoto. The problem is we just installed in April, so we'll just start to plant the crops, and the first results we will just have in the end of this year, or maybe late summer. Depends how fast the strawberries are growing. So I hope to be able to answer your question in the next month, but we have to be a bit patient because we just had no crop yield so far. But of course, it's not only the climate which made us to go for this 44% ground cover ratio, but also the crops. So as we have strawberries and potatoes, for both, we would expect that this coverage ratio is working fine. Makoto, I see a question in the chat from Remy.
Oh, okay, sure.
Shall I try to answer this?
Yeah. Is a project in Algeria, how much of the energy production efficiency is sacrificed in order to create a V shape for water collection? Okay.
Yeah, very important question, Remy. We have just theoretical calculations so far. And in this was just between 2 and 3%.
Oh, that's small. That's
small, but it's important to be small because otherwise it's hard to convince the PV installations to go for this V shape. But the threat is still that this comes along with a relatively low tilt angle. So we just went for 15% of module tilt, which is relatively flat, and this bears the risk that there might be some soiling. And if we have soiling, then of course the losses would be higher, and this is also something which we just will find out during monitoring the system.
Yeah. Why didn't you do that in reverse V shape, like rooftop shape, so that you don't have a soiling and as water drips down on the surface of PV panel, maybe it will be drained out, and you can still have a gutter or rain collectors on the side.
So the reason why we went for this V shape is to have just one rain gutter in the central position, that's easier for the statics, because fixing it on the modules, that would not work for warranty issues. So we would need a certain mounting structure to hold the gutters, which is more costly, which also produces more shade on the crops. And in our case, with the dummies, the structure would have been even too weak to hold this structure. So that's why we try to get some more insights on this V shape. And if it will be successful, that's something we still have to wait for the result.
I see. Okay. Okay, we have two more questions. One from unknown anonymous one, and another from Richard. Okay, this is long one. So Richard, maybe you can speak up by yourself and ask a question. Yeah. Can you do that, Richard?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, great. Good to hear you.
Yeah.
Richard.
Hi, Max. Yeah. Thanks very much. That was a fantastic presentation. Like I said in the question, that covered a lot of key points. So yeah, really thank you very much for that. I was wondering, what material are you using for the dummy arrays that you've set up? And I did also ask about the modeling of the V shape, but you've covered that. And then I also just wanted to say that it was really interesting how you broke down your yield into marketable outputs.
Right.
Because obviously, if you look at total yield in 2017, it looks like your yield is lower. But like you said, when you break it down into marketable, actually it's the same. But also an interesting output from that is that you're reducing waste. And it would be quite interesting to think about how AV can actually reduce waste, as well as the impacts on your usable yield as well. But the main question is about just wondering what material you've used for the dummies.
Excellent questions, Richard, and great to have you in this round. So I'm not 100% sure. I would have to ask Brandon to be sure, but I think that's just plastic boards. That's at least what I can see from the pictures. I might show it again. Maybe we can just cover this, but I share my screen for a second.
Yeah, sure. Please go ahead.
So I'm pretty sure that it's some plastic boards. I think you can see it now.
Yes.
Yeah. So you see this white stripes. So it cannot be just paper, because this would not hold over this project period. So it has to be somehow waterproof. We also thought in the beginning about wooden parts, but also the wooden parts might be problematic if rain falls and then they change their shape. So that actually brings us to the second question of yours, the waste reduction. So we didn't support waste production in the Algeria project, as you've seen with these plastic boards, but in general, there might be the chance that agrivoltaics support a reduction of waste. We could not show this with this potato yield, to be honest. So that's an organic farming community. So also the smaller and bigger potatoes, either they ate it by themselves because they were just not as marketable, or their animal husbandry was took care on the potatoes. So to use the potatoes for feedstock, that's something which is pretty typical for this farming community. But maybe one other and very interesting insight, which I just learned 2 weeks ago, because it was the quality of the clover grass from last year's yield in Hegelbach. There again, we had some reductions on the crops, about 25% even, so rather high. But they also did quality checks regarding the protein content. And it was very interesting to see that the protein content of the agrivoltaic systems was significantly higher compared to the open field clover grass. That's again important for the animal feedstock for this farming community. And that's also a very interesting hint on how the quality could change and be improved. And of course, it would be nice to also understand the agronomic processes behind it. That's, of course, some way to go for all of us to understand this more in detail. But experiments shows that there is, it's definitely worth to shed more light on this.
Yeah, I agree. The quality, enhanced quality under the panel will be very, very interesting topic to seek. I think like French wine industry, they are very much concerned with quality issues. So the French researchers are focusing on the agrivoltaics, not only to protect the wine grapevine from the extreme weather event, but also to maintain wine quality, wine grapes quality. So what and also you said by using agrivoltaics and also rainwater combined with rainwater harvesting, you can prolong or extend the growing season. That translates to better market opportunities because you can sell the agriculture produce while no other people can provide them, right? And that came up with a previous webinar series as well.
Yeah,
So,
I think, Makoto, that's a very interesting point. Yeah.
So Ibrahim, I see some French questions, and also you can have some comments on up to now.
Yeah, okay. Merci bien, Max. I think this has been really fantastic presentation, contribution, and comment on the questions. Donc, je dirais que bon, pour les différentes questions qui ont été posées, ça a été beaucoup de questions techniques, comme vous avez pu le suivre, qui ont été posées à Max. Mais la question qui est là, un peu, qui est en français, c'est un peu voir, Max, ce que notre auditeur nous dit ici, c'est de voir un peu sur la gouvernance, c'est-à-dire the governance of the systems. So it means if you want to disseminate the agrivoltaics, so of course you show the one which is universities, Mali and Gambia, but if it's good for the pilot, but if you want to disseminate this, you just mentioned, Max, that in France is very important for the wine culture. So it means the person is asking the question, who should be the drivers? Should be the enterprise, should be the kind of cooperative, should be the different municipalities. So, and who should be the owners and the land tenure, the land utilizations, and what should be the relationship with the communities, and also was the local authorities. So I think that's for the participant. Those are the questions quite important when you are coming in the context of dissemination. So it should be the kind of our focus on disseminating the agrivoltaic in Africa.
Yeah, thank you, Emmanuel. So the question was, how can agrivoltaics be supported and disseminated in different countries?
Yes,
right?
what should
and who are the important drivers?
Exactly. Because you see stakeholders in wine culture, and then in Europe you had some kind of company and agriculture, Japan also, but what you see in African perspectives.
So this question has to be answered very different from country to country, I think. Yeah. Because especially the agricultural players are probably very differently structured in Europe or in Africa or in Japan. But in each case, I think it's very helpful if the central government also supports the developments. Because in many cases, we observed that there are some national laws which, or federal laws, which somehow hinder the development of agrivoltaics. I'm not sure how this is in Mali, to be honest, but the question of land use and land use rights is usually very complex. And if it's not federal or national laws, then it could be also tribal or informal rules about how to use land. And at the moment you install a system, of course, always the question about ownerships and operation arises. And to answer this, we have to have an idea about the business models or the ownership models of agrivoltaic systems. And in our projects, APV MAGA, that's one very central question. How we can harness the technological potential of agrivoltaics to overcome the political and maybe economic challenges. Because obviously, from a technical point of view, the potential is great in most countries in Africa. But the challenges are rather how to receive investments, how to have a long-term perspective for business models and for stakeholder participation. So all these questions are less technical, but very important to push agrivoltaics in Africa. And I do not have a clear answer to that, but just that we have to take a deeper look on all these financing and development opportunities in order to find the answers.
Merci bien, Marc. Donc, effectivement, pour Gilles, c'est-à-dire Max trouve qu'il n'y a pas une question claire, ça va dépendre beaucoup de pays en pays. Mais ce qui est clair, selon lui, c'est que le gouvernement doit jouer un rôle dans ces dispositifs. Donc, parce que ça va dépendre, c'est un aspect qui est essentiel, selon lui, pour pouvoir, c'est-à-dire la durabilité des systèmes. Je dirais aussi pour les autres participants, c'est-à-dire si on prend les cas du Mali aujourd'hui, c'est-à-dire le Mali a donné beaucoup d'avantages pour les énergies renouvelables, parce que les équipements d'énergie renouvelable sont exonérés au Mali. Il n'y a pas de taxes sur les équipements d'énergie renouvelable, ça c'est extrêmement important. Et aussi, aujourd'hui, il y a beaucoup de structures financières qui sont prêtes à financer le déploiement des énergies renouvelables. Mais le défi qu'on a, bien sûr, c'est la capacité. Comment avoir vraiment des techniciens, avoir des équipements de bonne qualité et qui peuvent vraiment être installés, être plus durables pour pouvoir avoir un retour sur l'investissement beaucoup plus ou moins correct. Merci.
Thank you, Max. Yeah, as long as the legal aspect of agrivoltaics goes, I guess you came up with. We are now trying to study and compare the different laws and regulations regarding agrivoltaics in different countries, right? And also, you came up with a manual or guidebook for German agrivoltaics. And we are talking about to come up with internationally applicable guidebook. So I think one of the sections can be devoted to the legal aspect of agrivoltaics, and then information is now gradually consolidated. So it may be a good topic that we can discuss in upcoming Agrivoltaics 2021, and we may be able to come up with something next year and onward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Makota, I'm very thankful for this remark, because usually getting supporting mechanisms is not as difficult if you, for example, just implement a feed-in tariff for agrivoltaics. But the important steps before are, of course, as you mentioned, Makoto, to define what is agrivoltaics, also as a legal basis. And then just in the second step, you can think about how to support it. Because this definition is just very important. Because as we see worldwide, there are quite different understandings of agrivoltaics.
Okay. I see some questions from the audience. Maybe some of them can speak up. Mr. James McDonald, and maybe you can talk.
James, if it doesn't work with your mic, I can also answer your question by the things I read in the chat.
Yeah, please do so then.
Great that you're also here, James. So the main question is why we did not use bifacial modules or transparent backsheets in the case of Algeria. That's a good question because usually, as you know, we are very interested in bifacial glass PV panels because they provide, as you're writing, more homogeneous light conditions. And of course, it's also very interesting to observe synergies between the crop layer and the rear side, so the back side of the PV panels, and how to optimize also this aspect of agrivoltaics. But as you also assumed in your question, here in Algeria, we had to go for a bit more low-tech PV system, also because of budget restrictions. I mentioned that we already had to install most of the systems as dummies. So also here we could not afford bifacial modules. And also, as we do have an east-west system with rather small PV row width, so it's just 1 meter, so 2 meters of PV row. We have a quite well shade wandering over the course of a day. So that means that the light is still pretty equally distributed. So that the need for transparent or semi-transparent glass modules was not as high as in other projects.
But do you think still there is some use of bifacial if your budget allows it? Definitely, it's gonna increase the electricity production, right?
Of course. So there are several factors who define the economic benefits of bifacial modules. And of course, one is the albedo value of the ground and the crops.
And also must be very high in Africa.
Yeah, so that would be one argument for bifacial modules. And of course, time also is a strong argument for bifacial modules because, as we have seen in the last years, they enter the market pretty dynamically, and we will see more and more, and also cheaper bifacial modules. So, on the long run, I'm very optimistic that we will see more bifacial panels also in Africa.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Okay. Okay, Chum. Here's a question from Chum Hao Tam. Maybe you can ask him directly, if you can talk.
Hi, Max. Thank you very much for your presentation. I'd like to ask why potato and onions are selected for your project in Mali and Gambia. Are these crops commonly grown in both areas? Why do you select this? Thanks.
Thank you for your question, June. So for Gambia, to be correct, we did not decide yet what to grow. So the choice on potato and onion, it's just true for Mali. And there it was a result of the discussions with the university there. So for which crops we can have most valid and most valuable results for further development of agrivoltaics. And I don't have the exact reasons, to be honest, Chun, but obviously the opinion of our partner there from the university was very important.
Thanks, Max, for your explanation.
I hope this helps. Makoto, there's another question from Remy.
Yeah, let me okay, maybe you can ask directly. Remy.
Hi, thank you. Max, thank you very much for this presentation. It's been very interesting. I was wondering if you could discuss more about the water collection system that you are going to use or are using in Algeria. Like, is it redistributed to the crops and how is it stored? Are there pumps in the system? Just kind of a little bit more about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you, Remy, for this question. That's very important because especially the water storage is still also for us a partial open question. The most efficient way from a technical point of view is obviously having an earth tank, because you don't have some losses due to evaporation. So for this site in Algeria, we also installed an earth tank, but this is relatively costly, especially for larger systems. So here in this location in Algeria, it's relatively small. It's just, I think, 2 times 18 PV panels. But if for larger systems, the earth tank would be very large and accordingly pretty costly. So of course, also the possibility of surface water storage by ponds, for example, is an option. But the decision has to be made also depending on the geographic conditions, because sometimes you might not have the possibility, or also if it's for long dry seasons, could be that these ponds dry completely up. So one very elegant possibility to store rainwater for a long term is to use natural groundwater systems. That's actually what we had in India in our pilot study, that the groundwater was very much exploited already, but it was possible, at least from a desktop study perspective, to refill this groundwater storage capacities. If you avoid that rainwater flows out superficially, but you collect it and directly pump it, or let flow it down, and then you don't have any losses anymore. Of course, there might be a risk to change the water quality in the ground. So also there might be some open questions, but it has at least the potential to be a very affordable and efficient way to store this water. But again, also here, the geographic conditions are very crucial, because sometimes the aquifers in the ground might be interconnected and you don't know in each case where the water you store ends up. So this, of course, requires some more detailed studies, and usually seems to be recommended for larger systems, because for small systems, the balance between the water you pump in and get out again might be also different, or the risk also to that distribute somewhere else. So that's regarding the water storage. For the particular installation in Algeria, I already mentioned that we had a earth tank. And of course, we need some pumps to get it up again and to irrigate it. The irrigation system is also not yet installed, so I can provide more details on that. Yeah, but what I can say that we have a second installation which our colleagues are supervising, where we also try to treat the groundwater which is there in this area, not suitable for irrigation because it's low quality. That's kind of another story, but it maybe shows the potential also to use the PV electricity also for water treatments.
Ibrahim, I remember you have a gravitational water tank installed in one of the your microgrid site, which we visited together, Bank Manor. So what is your view or opinion about the water storage?
I think it's a very good point that as was mentioned. Water is very essential, and especially in the Sahel regions, from March to beginning of July. So it's where we have the green vegetable are very expensive, extremely expensive, because people have to the water is not enough or quite deep. Many hand well are drying out, and then you have to go more deep. And any way to is why we are using, like you saw in Bangmana, the drill of up to 70 to 120 meters water balls, and then we have a solar pump or electric pump to bring water to and store water in a tank, and then from that, women can do, a gardener can do activities and growing crops. So there's other activity, of course. What is a limitation here in the Sahel is harvest and store the rainwater. We don't have that culture and that traditions. So it means we have a lot of water, 20 to 100 millimeters sometimes per rainfall, which come, and then after a few hours, everything is gone. Donc we don't have that practices to really, not enough. It's starting, but it's really quite still infant stage to really get store the rain water for the dry period. That's very infant stage at the moment in the Sahel areas, but it's coming little by little. Yeah. Donc, la question est qu'on n'a pas cette habitude pour le moment de collecter les eaux de pluie donc dans le pays du Sahel ici. On peut avoir des pluies torrentielles de 50 à plus de 100 mm, c'est-à-dire en 2 heures, 3 heures de pluie, mais toutes ces pluies-là partent avec les eaux de ruissellement. Donc, pour le moment, on n'a vraiment pas c'est-à-dire une tradition, une formation appropriée, une culture vraiment de stocker les eaux de pluie pour les utiliser durant la saison sèche. Et pourtant, la saison sèche, si ce n'est pas les eaux de forage, il y a énormément de difficultés pour avoir accès à l'eau pour des activités de maraîchage.
Okay, thank you for both. I'd like to continue this discussion more, but time is there. So we have to wrap up the session already. So before asking both of you to have last words, I have a little announcement to make. Let's see. Let me show this. Okay. So upcoming webinars, as I said, please reserve June 14th to 16th. Those are the days for Agrivoltaics 2021, which was started last year. This is second year, and Max will be chairing and hosting this worldwide conference. And this year's theme that Max came up with was connecting Agrivoltaics worldwide, which is very much appropriate for our webinar series as well. So please visit this webpage, and you can still grab early bird special rate, which is not that cheap, but it's at least cheaper than regular admission fee. So please do so. And in July, we are planning to invite the Japanese key agriculturists, both specialists in the from Shizuoka Prefecture in Japan, right? And then you can always visit our website to view the past webinar series, both in English and French, presentations and also presentation materials. So thank you very much. And then you can have last words, Ibrahim and Max, maybe. Yeah.
Donc, oui, et ce que je voulais vraiment dire, je tiens d'abord à remercier notre invité, Max, pour cette brillante présentation. Max, merci beaucoup. Tu pourras venir à Bamako, et quand tu es à Bamako, on pourra avec Emmanuel se voir, et donc pour ce beau projet. Vraiment merci. Et je remercie aussi notre partenaire ICEP Japan, donc Makoto, Shoto, et donc Christian et Tetsu. Merci bien pour ces partenariats. Et aussi, je remercie les Mali Folk Center, le directeur Mamadou Diarra, son collègue Fad et Clément, tous les gens qui nous ont permis de co-organiser ça avec ICET. Et je remercie vous aussi les participants. Hein, donc, et aussi, sans oublier, dire que bonne fête de Ramadan pour ceux qui sont dans les Ramadan aujourd'hui, parce que c'est la fin. Nous, on a fêté hier, on a mangé beaucoup de viande. Donc, pour ceux qui sont dans les Ramadan aujourd'hui, ok, bon appétit et bon Ramadan. Merci bien. Ouais.
Okay, Max, you have last words?
I think there's nothing to add apart from thank you also from my side. Bon appétit, merci beaucoup, et je souhaite que nous rencontrer tout de suite en personne. That was very bad French, but I think you know, Emmanuel, what I mean. So all the best and enjoy the last day of Ramadan or the first day of eating, and see you soon.
See you. Bye.
So thank you very much, Max and Ibrahim, and also the audience to spend time together with us. And I hope to see all of you at the next webinar, and also Agrivoltaics 2021. Okay, thank you for all. Bye, see you.